Robots. Everybody likes robots. Funny robots. Scary robots. Robots that fall in love. Robots that we fall in love with? Uh-oh. Robots are great. In movies. The real ones are a whole different story. Robots in fiction are usually allegories for all that boring human stuff. What is it to be human? Have emotions. I make videos on the internet, so I don't know. Robots don't know either, and that's how writers use them to ask all the truly deep questions. And if that gets too boring, just have Will Smith fight an army of robot Spider-Men. iRobot. Oh boy, iRobot. No, not the pancake that barely cleans your floors and scares your cat. I'm talking about the 2004 robot murder mystery. The one with that robot that looks like Sheldon Cooper.
One guy, a long time.
Bazinga.
And Will Smith wants to kill every clanker he sees. I'll be honest, the last few years haven't really been the best for Will Smith. It might seem distant now, but there was a time where he was unstoppable. The 2000s were truly the Willennium. Men in Black 2, Bad Boys 2, Hitch, Hancock, Pursuit of Happiness, I Am Legend, Shark Tale. Each movie was hit after hit, and then iRobot was there too, I guess. Yeah, despite having Will Smith attached, iRobot was only the 11th highest grossing movie of 2004. Granted, it was a very packed year. This was the year where we got Destiny Deoxys. Hell, iRobot wasn't even the most successful Will Smith movie that year. That said, for some reason, this movie has just stuck with me for 2 decades now. One of those things you watch as a kid and it just stays with you despite not even being that special. Maybe it was the faces. Those faces are something you'll never forget. Outside of that, this movie still fascinates me. Yeah, it's not a good adaptation of the Isaac Asimov book. Every fan will tell you that.
Hey y'all!
But what about this movie as its own thing? Perhaps if we just took a step back and examined iRobot as its own project, then maybe we could come to realize that it's still really not that good. But hey, it's funny to talk about. Hi, I'm John Internet, here to tell you about all the amazing things on the World Wide Web. Did you know you can watch movies and/or television shows on your computer or telephone at home? You can! Technology now has advanced at staggering rates, but sometimes the internet has some nefarious types. That's no good, which is why I like to protect myself with Private Internet Access, the sponsor of today's video. Private Internet Access is one of the most transparent VPNs in the world. I can't even find it. I lost it. Where'd it go? Luckily, with over 30 million downloads, there's a lot more private internet access to go around.
But what exactly is a VPN?
I'm glad you asked, Billy. A VPN, or Virtual Private Network, is an app that hides your IP address and encrypts your internet traffic, protecting your online security and anonymity. Private Internet Access protects your personal data with top-tier encryption and adheres to a strict no-logs policy, keeping your online activity safe from your internet service provider, network admins, or any other third party.
I like watching a film or two. I appreciate how PIA works seamlessly with all of the major streaming services like the aforementioned Netflix and/or Hulu.
So true, Billy. It also lets me access geo-restricted content from all around the world by allowing me to change my IP address to one of 91 countries and all 50 American states. Bypassing geo-restrictions also helps you browse other streaming platforms, social media, and websites that may be restricted in your country. PIA is one of the few VPNs that supports P2P file sharing, making it a solid choice for anyone looking for more privacy and flexibility online.
But where can I use this private internet access?
What a good question! Private Internet Access is available on all platforms: Windows, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and more. And you get unlimited simultaneous device connections using a single subscription. Wow! That's just $2.03 a month, and you'll even get 4 extra months completely free. Plus, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so signing up is risk-free, and if you ever need help, 24/7 customer support is always available. Billy, where'd you go? I can't see you.
I don't know. I can't see my legs.
Oh God.
How did this happen?
Well, it is very transparent.
Yeah, but I thought that was like a metaphor.
Ha 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 ha. Welcome to Chicago. It's the far distant year of 2035. Ooh. God, we're closer to 2035 than we are to this movie's release. The march of time goes forward, only 10 years away until everything looks like the Star Wars prequels. I like that everyone's still dressed like it's 2004, especially our protagonist, Detective Del Spooner. Del Spooner. What a name. We're just gonna call him Will Smith.
So whatever I can do to help, just...
Sugar.
I'm sorry?
Sugar.
Will Smith is kind of a 2035 hipster. His DVD player doesn't have Siri. He even breaks out some 2004 Converse All-Stars that 100% aren't product placement, I swear. Forced to live in the 2030s, meant to thrive during the Bush era. So real. Why does Will Smith do this? It's because he really, really hates robots. And that's kind of a problem because in 2035 there's robots everywhere. On the streets, in your home, in the stairs, in the attic, everywhere. Systematic. There's just no escaping them in this society. They do most of the manual labor now. All of civilization is propped up by these mechanical servants. But they like doing it. You know, they like their job. They like being helpful. But Will Smith doesn't like them, to like a Ted Kaczynski level. I wonder why that is. Probably because of some traumatic event in his past or something. For everyone else though, he just seems like a crazy man. I mean, he is kind of already a crazy man. Like, who the f*** eats a pie like that? Why does he force this guy to hold his pie?
Sir, hold it or wear it.
Does he ever get the pie back? Is some guy still standing there with Will Smith's pie? For the most part, the way he interacts with everyone is just kind of antisocial and odd. Not even in a I'm distrustful of technology way, more like Dan from Dan Versus. Like he's a little jerk, but not too big of a jerk where everyone avoids him. Like he has a friend, Shia LaBeouf.
Fine ass little yummy. I mean, she is complete and agreeable. I mean, ass hot spankable, Spoon.
What does that even mean?
He channels that energy mainly into hating those robots, though. Oh man, does he hate them. Half the movie is Will Smith going, I don't trust those things, and everyone tells him to shut up. You know, until the robot uprising happens. Just like one day I'll be vindicated for not trusting those Boston Dynamic bots. Yeah, I'm sure Spot's gonna be real useful for firefighting. That's why the military invested all that money into those things. In this future, everyone is an idiot. Nobody can imagine robots ever doing anything bad, because robots have never done anything bad. They've never committed a crime or harmed a person. They physically can't do anything bad because they're programmed to follow the 3 laws. Oh boy, the 3 laws. The laws are really important here. The movie flat out makes you read them at the start. It'll be on the test later, don't forget it. 1. A robot may not injure a human being or through an action allow a human being to come to harm. 2. A robot must obey the orders given to it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. And 3. A robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. Gotta say those laws are pretty airtight. Sure hope there isn't a loophole that causes the robots to rise up against humanity and use us as fertilizer. That'd be a shame. Robots in this world aren't alive. They don't feel things. They don't cry, they don't love, they're just fancy appliances. Think of a smart fridge or your average Florida driver. There's nothing going on up there. Even then, despite living in this world, for some reason when Will Smith sees a robot running down the street holding a purse, he just assumes that it stole it. Why? He literally chases the thing down, tackles it, and whips out a gun. Turns out it was just delivering an inhaler.
I saw a robot running with the purse, and naturally, I assumed...
What? Are you crazy?
Yes. This is basically like if a cop opened fire on one of those robots that deliver food. Down at the precinct, Will is kind of a joke.
Jeez, that robot stole my dry cleaning.
No robot's ever done anything wrong. It would go against the first law, so this is just really, really stupid. And look, we know Will's the protagonist, we know the movie, we know he has the right to be suspicious. But right now, in this world, Will's actually just a crazy man. Not in the I'm suspicious of Alexa because she could be listening to my conversation sort of way. More like accusing Alexa of stealing your car, then beating the shit out of it. Like, yeah man, I distrust technology as much as the next guy, but I don't think a drone is ever gonna steal a lady's purse.
Does thinking you're the last sane man on the face of the earth make you crazy? Because if it does, maybe I am.
In this future dystopia, the US is pretty much controlled by US robotics, the standard omnipresent juggernaut we see in all these stories. You know the deal. Their headquarters are on the Chicago River, like literally on it. The most unrealistic thing about this movie is that they would have allowed this to happen. This would have disrupted St. Patty's Day. Society is basically populated by these scuffed up janky bots called the NS4s. Everyone owns them. So by this point, these things are just smartphones that get your groceries. They're getting kind of old, and are getting replaced by the new line of robots, the fancy new NS5s. Oh my god, talk about triggering your fight or flight response. If you stare into the depths of the uncanny valley, does it stare back? How the hell did this design get approved in-universe? Why would USR ever give these things a face? That translucent, strange skin, realistic moving lips. Ugh. Imagine if in real life we went from cute helping robots to these things. It'd be ridiculed to hell. They'd have to change the design like they did to the live-action Sonic. Nobody would buy this. It's so funny how for most of the movie, only Will Smith distrusts these things, and nobody else gets it. And that just kinda pisses me off. Like, people are just distrustful by nature. People think their video game is cheating half the time. You're telling me they'd openly trust a 6-foot metal man in their house? Then, when the robots actually do rebel, nobody really acts that shocked. They kinda just agree with Will Smith without missing a beat. The police chief takes out 5 of them without batting an eye. Dr. Calvin never even reflects on her ignorance. She just moves on. You bunch of hypocrites. In the 2000s, they just loved imagining the future as translucent and round. Today, most associate it with whatever Apple was doing back then. To an 8-year-old me, the iPod and iMac were like the coolest things ever. They were minimalistic, sleek, clean. Y2K as an aesthetic was pretty much just this. But I wouldn't call it straight Y2K. Like if Blade Runner was the futuristic equivalent of the 1980s, this movie looks like it was ripped out of a Popular Science cover from 2005. Not like that's a bad thing. The city is actually pretty grounded. They could have gone down the stereotypical depressing dystopian look, but they didn't. I appreciate that. There's still blue skies, the city actually looks pretty nice. I think it looks more lively than Chicago now. Where was I? Oh yeah, the robots. Why does Will hate these things so much? A few years back, Will got into a car accident. Big semi-truck slammed his car into another car, they all tumbled into the river. A robot saw this happen, and due to that first law of robotics, it tried to help. It calculated that Will had a better chance of surviving than this girl. With that logic, it decided to save him instead of her. Ever since then, Will has been racked with guilt. He despises all robots now because they aren't humans, who would have clearly saved the girl instead.
Robots, nothing here, just lights and clockwork. Go ahead and you trust them if you want to.
Kind of an odd reason to despise all robots now. Like, I get it, they don't feel emotion. A person probably would have saved the child over the 30-year-old man. But like, how does your brain make that connection to hate all of robot kind? He lives in this world, he grew up in it. He knows what they're literally built for. It's not their fault it isn't in their programming. It could have very easily not saved either of them. It could have not been waterproof and immediately fried. Let's be honest here, he should have been angry at the semi-company for forcing their drivers to travel without sleep. Realistically, this is a lawsuit with some logistics company. And call those big-rig Texan lawyers for a settlement. Also, I can't bring this up anywhere else, but I find it extremely funny that in this world of complete automation, where even the cars can drive themselves, somehow the main character was still hit by a truck driver. I get the feeling of survivor guilt, but like, come on. This is like being furious at the existence of ambulances because an ambulance didn't drive fast enough one time. Also, he's a cyborg now.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure why. He looked pretty okay in the flashback. Will got patched up by Dr. Lanning at USR, who replaced his broken human parts with fancy robot ones. The two became good pals after this. Dr. Lanning isn't in the movie too much, considering the fact that he's, dead, and the movie's about finding out who killed him. His death is officially ruled a suicide, considering he splattered himself all over the USR lobby. But Will, being a detective and all, notices something is off. Like, how did this old guy throw himself through bulletproof glass? Dr. Lanning didn't take his own life. Oh no. This was murder. Lots of potential suspects and motives here. Was it the CEO? He seems pretty suspicious. Was it the police chief? He was a bit too quick to assume that a robot couldn't do it. Was it Logan Roy? His brother would love to see him out of the company. Wait, wrong show. This should make for a classic whodunit. Guess our mystery is now afoot. Oh wait, there was a robot hiding in Lanning's office the whole time. Okay, mystery over. He's got a gun! I don't know why, but I remember this face being plastered everywhere. You couldn't escape it. Or maybe it just stuck with me. Couldn't forget that freak staring at me with those ice-cold A10s. I like Sonny. Like, he's off-putting, but in a nice way. Also, his face just makes me laugh.
What am I?
Use any frame for instant comedy gold. Sonny's the special robot that feels emotions, has empathy. He's alive. The filmmakers believed the only way this movie would work was if the audience believed that Sonny was real. I disagree. I think this would have been way more entertaining if they just had Will Smith screaming at a guy in a green suit.
What am I?
Will Smith catches Sonny in the professor's office, he gets scared, gets shot, runs away, gets caught, and then finally gets interrogated. Okay, so the police chief thinks it's silly that Will Smith wants to interrogate a robot, right? 'Cause it's a robot. How dumb. It can't hurt anybody. It's like interrogating a toaster. But if he thought the whole interrogation was silly, why is this room surrounded by half a dozen armed guards?
Can a robot turn a canvas into a beautiful masterpiece?
I don't know if it's art, but I saw a robot do this. Speaking of robotic war crimes, Dark of the Moon. Remember Dutch? Of course you do. Who wouldn't remember Dutch?
I'm so sorry, that is the old me.
Well, Alan Tudyk was also Sonny.
I'm so sorry, that is the old me.
Thought I might mention it. He was also the chicken in Moana. Dr. Susan Calvin.
What exactly do you do around here?
I make the robots seem more human.
And wasn't that easier to say?
Not really.
In the original Isaac Asimov book, Dr. Susan Calvin was like the thread connecting all these stories together. The original book was an anthology all relating to wacky robots. She was really old in the book, but here she's John Wick's dead wife. The only thing these two characters share is their lack of emotion. They're very cold. Not a huge fan of people.
What the hell is that thing doing in here?
We were watching TV.
In the book, she was even more of a hermit. Also, I guess they do share their name. But by then, what's the point? A lot of Isaac Asimov fans really don't like this movie. Like, iRobot is as faithful an adaptation to the book as Death Note is on Netflix. I think they're wrong. I'm pretty sure this happened in the book. I'm not looking at this as an adaptation of a book. I'm looking at this as its own self-contained product. The hit 2004 movie iRobot. The general public didn't care what those nerds thought. I didn't even know it was based on a book when I was a dumb little kid. I thought it was a reference to the iPod, or the iDog. That was when technology truly peaked. Honestly, I'm kinda surprised the studio didn't lean into this. The book's title has an uppercase I, but the movie has a lowercase one. But they should have gone all the way. They should have been more shameless. Those soulless executives aren't being soulless enough. I should be a Hollywood executive. I'd greenlight the worst ideas. Call me Sony. So there's no resemblance between the original book and the movie at all. Or is there? Stick with me here. Most of the stories in iRobot follow the same basic story beats. Robot starts doing weird shit, scientists gotta figure out why, and usually everything revolves around those three laws. In one story, a robot can read minds. Everyone wants to ask it questions because, you know, it can read people's minds. So the robot does stuff like tell a woman that the guy she's secretly in love with actually loves her back, or it tells a man that his boss is leaving and he's gonna get a promotion. Here's the kicker though, it's just fucking lying. It made it all up. The bot knows exactly what people want to hear, and it knows that if it says anything else, it would cause them harm, like mental damage, stuff like that, which would go against the first law. The 3 laws are interesting to talk about, because man, are they so incredibly flawed. Like, if you get pissed at your neighbor, you could tell his robot that you're gonna poke yourself in the eye unless the robot jumps off a cliff. This sentence would make a robot's head explode. There's a lot of silly ways to fry a clanker's brain. Tell a robot he's gotta rob a bank or you'll punch a baby. Stuff like that. This isn't some mistake Asimov made. That's clearly the point of these stories. iRobot is exploring all the problems that might arise if robots are just bound by 3 laws. The movie adaptation really wanted to play into that. So, after a red herring or two, it's revealed that the real killer of Dr. Lanning wasn't the CEO at all. It wasn't the chief of police or Shia LaBeouf. It was Vicky. No, not that Vicky. Vicky, the USR supercomputer built by Lanning himself.
I have decreased traffic fatalities by 9% this year alone.
Ooh, thanks.
Oh man, what a twist. Who could have seen this coming? Not certainly anyone who's ever seen a Rogue AI plot, or even just by looking at her. I think this is an alternate world where nobody developed a fight or flight response, because how the hell can they be surrounded by these things all day and suspect nothing? What's funny is that since this is still a mystery, the movie expects the audience to be caught off guard that Vicky was the real killer all along. Like, man, how could this be? She was just so friendly looking. Why did Vicky kill the guy that created her? Hell, how did she even kill him? She's just as constrained by the logic of the 3 laws as any other bot. Well, plot twist again, she killed him because of the 3 laws. Ooh. You see, the 3 laws state that a robot has to intervene if a human is in harm, but humans are always putting themselves in harm's way. Burn down the rainforest. Somehow managed to turn Lake Michigan into a landfill.
You cannot be trusted with your own survival.
Is this not deep and profound? The most logical solution to all of this is if Vicky takes over the world. If Vicky was in charge and controlled everybody, then less humans would get hurt. Might require killing a few people along the way, but you can't crack a few humans without making an omelet. So, Dr. Lanning knew Vicky turned evil, but he couldn't do anything about it since he was being watched by her. Basically held hostage by Vicky. The only way he could get the message out that she was about to start a robot revolution was pretty simple, by offing himself.
Shoot myself and make you two watch.
Kind of seems like there were less, extreme solutions to that problem. Like, she's an AI. She wasn't literally locking him in the building. He could have just passed a note to somebody outside of work. Even if he was trapped, just break a window, post it on Twitter or something. Hell, just run around the building yelling that the evil robot lady wanted to take over the world. It's not like he was worried about his personal safety because he killed himself all for a clue. Wasn't even that clear of a clue.
Why would you kill yourself?
That, detective, is the right question.
Imagine your death being so ambiguous that the guy who's meant to interpret it doesn't even figure out the answer in time. By the time Will realizes Vicky is evil, it's already too late. The robots are already attacking people. He should have just wrote Vicky was evil or something on his body. That would have helped a lot. Instead, Will makes the realization after all reasonable suspects are literally dead. I guess the CEO wasn't the bad guy after all, considering his neck is snapped. Wow, Will. Great detective work. Hell, Dr. Lanning should have just had Sonny sprint right down the hall and dive into Vicky, implant her with those nanites himself. Well, I guess because of this chuckle nut, we got a robot revolution instead. Thanks, Steve Wozniak. Man, Shia LaBeouf cannot catch a break when it comes to robots, huh? Okay, so I know I've been making fun of the robot designs because in the world, they're not the most user-friendly.
You are experiencing a car accident.
But they weren't designed to look like nice robots. I get it. They were designed for a movie where Will Smith goes full Butlerian jihad. For that, they're effective. No, really. Like, this is an army of robot Spider-Men. I mentioned that before, but think about that. That's kind of horrifying. It's very rare for robot storylines to include fast, agile bots. They're either slow and machine-like, or they're squids. In iRobot, we have quick ninjas who can crush people's skulls, and there's thousands of them. That's pretty cool. Makes sense now why Will Smith has that metal arm. Oh, it was a piece of irony since he hates machines but he's part machine himself? No. I'm pretty sure it's so he could rip these things' heads off. Yeah. And also so he could do this sick trick to destroy Vicky. The real lesson of iRobot is that having a metal arm is beneficial more often than not. Also, Sonny actually did kill the professor. This dude was 100% guilty the whole time.
But then Vicky didn't kill the old man. Did she, Sonny?
No.
What I love about iRobot is that it has a lot of themes, and like half of them just contradict each other. Like Sonny. Whole movie, Will Smith is suspicious towards robots, right? Kind of even bigoted since Sonny's sort of alive. Everyone tells Will Smith he's wrong to suspect a robot, and that he just hates robots and is crazy, so the movie goes on and we learn that Sonny is actually a pretty good guy. He winks, he has human emotion, so you think, oh yeah, there's no way he could have done something bad. But, at the end of the movie, they just had to reveal that, oh yeah, he 100% did it. Will Smith was right all along. There was no way the old man could break the window himself. Every suspicion he had was right. But hey, Sonny turned out to be chill, so who cares? Apparently, the doctor offed himself using Sonny because he knew that Will Smith was so prejudiced towards robots, he would suspect a robot killed his friend.
You know what they say. Laws are made to be broken.
The entire plan to save the world relied on this cop being racist. I love that everyone just accepts Sonny killed the scientist guy by the end. They're like, whatever. I guess they were just tired. Sonny goes off to live with the other bots in Robo District 9, and his entire existence from now on is being the only sentient being in a landfill. Funny story. iRobot originally had two endings. In the first, they defeat Vicky and Sonny asks Will, what now? Will just says, stick with us and you'll be alright. Will's gotten over his hatred of robots, Dr. Calvin learned how to emote, and Sonny gets the respect and acceptance he's always wanted. The end. Test audiences hated that. Like, what happened to Dr. Lanning? How did he die?
That, detective, is the right question.
The screenwriters were like, oh fuck, we forgot to include that, so they threw in one final twist. Yeah, you see, Sonny killed Dr. Lanning. That's not much better. Having Sonny kill Dr. Lanning plugs a few plot holes up, I suppose, and I'm sure that's what the writers were focused on fixing, but they forgot what this would do to Sonny's whole character. Sonny is presented as innocent. Not literally innocent in the murder, which he wasn't, apparently, but like, naive. Like a kid. Learning, trying to do his best. He really just seems like a deer in the headlights during Will Smith's interrogation.
I did not him!
Him getting angry wasn't to showcase to the audience that he was violent. It was to show that he's human. He dislikes accusations that he's a murderer. But then, yeah, Sonny did actually just murder him. So what was this about? I could nitpick this myself and say, maybe Sonny was mad about the term murderer, and he technically wasn't a murderer because
he made me swear.
Or perhaps he's emotional because he had to kill his own father. There's a lot of excuses you can have that I imagine are gonna be in the comments. With all of that said, this scene doesn't read like any of that to me. It reads like in this part of the script, he truly did not murder Dr. Lanning, but then they made a last-minute addition to solve a plot hole. So now this kinda makes no sense. Oh no, now Sonny killed Dr. Lanning as a favor.
He made me swear.
This is how I imagine that went down. Okay, Sonny, I need you to kill me. But don't tell anyone I told you to kill me. That would be bad. We got a pinky promise. Why? Don't worry about it. Okie dokie. Now after Will Smith finds my dead body, he'll go up into my office suspecting that one of my various robots killed me, something that has never happened before in human history until now. But I believe that my friend's rampant paranoid bigotry will lead to my robot's arrest anyway. My robot, who I hope doesn't tell anyone I told him to kill me, because if he did, it might make Will Smith suspect my robot less for some reason. I sure hope he figures out this murder soon, and that I killed myself so he would take Vicky down, as I am dying on the eve of these robots arriving in millions of homes, and certainly the eve of a robot revolution. There is no way this plan can fail. Blah. As much as I'm making fun of it, look, I do like iRobot. It's a mess, but it's got some pretty interesting concepts. Some dated but ambitious CGI. That said, this still feels like multiple films smashed together. We start off with this mystery wrapped up in some philosophical concepts, and end on Matrix at home. There's a reason for that. You see, iRobot didn't start off as iRobot, Will Smith action thriller. Originally, it was a much smaller project. Started off as a screenplay written by Jeff Vintar in the mid-90s, called Hardwired. It had a very simple premise. A detective investigates a crime and interrogates some robots. The entire film would have taken place at the scene of the crime, and it just never leaves. It's like a bottle movie. Disney liked the idea. They picked up the script and got to work doing what they do best. Ruining everything. Started making a few changes here and there. What if instead of a detective, it was a group of Marines? What if instead of a boring crime scene, it was a space station? What if instead of robots, it was monsters? It's aliens. They fucking rewrote Aliens. I'm assuming that at some point, Disney realized that the movie they were making already existed, and they dropped the whole thing. Fox comes in, gets the original script, but they also want to make some changes. Not quite as drastic as Disney, though. You see, they had just gotten the rights to Isaac Asimov's book, iRobot. Vintar already was inspired by Asimov's work, so including these elements wasn't a huge pain at all. The problem was that Fox got a new star for the project, Will Smith. This isn't a small deal at all. This is Will Smith in the early 2000s. Like, this is instantly a successful movie. This film was gonna make money. A mystery solving a murder is a good idea. But what if it was an action movie? What if it was an action movie starring Will Smith? Now that would make even more money. With each revision, the mystery elements started to take a back seat. Fox brought on a new writer, wanted them to make it more Hollywood, but also didn't want them to spend too much money, so you can imagine the type of executives we're dealing with. This was a classic case of studio micromanaging. Frankly, it's a miracle that iRobot was halfway decent. Now that said, I can't help but wonder, what would this movie be like if Fox never got its grubby hands all over it? Well, no need to speculate. The 2002 draft is online. I'll get this out of the way first. These are two entirely different movies. There's some similarities, sure, like some characters have the same names, there's robots, and a doctor is killed by a robot, but these are not the same plot. Del Spooner is still a detective. He still hates robots, but it's not because he was in a car accident. Nah, he just hates them to be a hipster. Or Amish. Most people in this future world are succumbing to brain rot, latched to their smart glasses while playing Subway Surfer. But not old Spoonie, he's just built different. He plays his Game Boy Advance like a man. Sonny the Robot is a lot more sarcastic and cynical in this version. Also, he's not entirely a robot. Yeah, the doctor actually built him with a real human brain. He's kind of a cyborg. The Mechanicus is jealous. Sonny's name has kind of always confused me. Like, why Sonny, of all things? Is it like Sony? Is he a PlayStation? Nope. Sonny is an anagram. Vicky isn't in this movie at all. Instead, the supercomputer is named Hector, and he's like a giant smiley face. He's a big Microsoft Bob. Hector doesn't like what the doctor is doing with Sonny. He thinks that building a biological machine will set humanity on a dangerous path. Over time, people will become more like robots, and robots will become more like people. Hector calculates that in about 400 years, the two will become one and the same. Humans will no longer exist, replaced by some new species. Because the first law requires robots to prevent harm to humans, and this is the end of humanity we're talking about, Hector can't let this happen. An issue a lot of people had with this movie was how Vicky could kill people. Her explanation was just dumb, too.
To protect humanity, some humans must be sacrificed.
It's a loophole, but it doesn't get around the fact that she has to constantly break the first law. This draft does it in a smarter way. Say a robot opens a window, and a person happens to trip and fall out that window half an hour later. Did the robot technically kill that person? Yeah, they did. Unintentionally and indirectly, but they still did. Hector uses this to his advantage. He builds robots to do extremely specific tasks. Like, one robot will grab a gun, one will aim it, and one will get the doctor to move his own finger to pull the trigger. Each individual action doesn't necessarily violate the first law, but combined, it results in a dead doctor. So why did Hector do it? Not for world domination, but to frame Sonny. Hector knew that Spooner hated robots. He would immediately suspect Sonny as the killer, and word would get out quickly that a robot killed a human. In this world, people are already pissed that robots are taking their jobs. And so, a robot killing a human would be just enough to tip things over the edge, cause mass riots. Hector is counting on people to turn on machines, to stop research into robotics, and hopefully end any chance of humans replacing themselves. Everyone in the draft is just a lot smarter than their movie counterparts. Like, people think Spooner's odd because he doesn't love technology, but the moment that Sonny grabs a gun, everyone knows that he's onto something. Susan Calvin isn't constantly fighting against him about whether robots are safe or not.
Deactivate.
Let him go.
It's not going to hurt us. I gave you an order.
He's not listening right now, lady.
She knows there's a problem. She's a much better character in the original. Instead of Spooner having the robot arm, she does. She doesn't use it like Bucky, though. Spooner doesn't just fall down a rabbit hole of clues that lead nowhere. He's actually a good detective. He stops Hector before he can try to take over the world. This 2002 draft isn't as action-oriented as the final film, and I don't know if it would have been as good, but it sure does explain why the story is the way it is. In the end, I guess only one real question remains.
What am I?
Why did Dr. Lanning do it? I know the official reason the movie gives, but I don't buy that. I don't buy Sonny chucking an old guy through a window, and clearly the screenwriters didn't either because this was a last-second fix. They didn't even mention this again originally. This whole murder mystery was just a holdover of the original script, and in that, it worked. Having Hector kill the doctor in a way that never broke the 3 laws just invites discussion on how these things even work. It was pretty clever. But having the doctor end himself, all for a clue, it just makes no sense. Unless he didn't just die for a clue. Okay, so after this whole shit show, the government immediately impounded all of these robots. Like, the military got involved. USR as a company probably doesn't even exist after this incident. Either their business collapses or the feds get involved. I don't really think they can buy themselves out of this one. Dr. Lanning would be the #1 person responsible for all of this. He would never live this event down. He would have been shunned from robotics. Hell, robotics itself probably would have been shunned. The entire field stripped down to never allow this to happen again. He might even go to prison. You know what? In my personal opinion, I think he just knew he was fucked. Clue my ass. Nah, man. He realized he was spending the rest of his life in Gitmo. Sonny didn't save the world. He just helped this guy evade the criminal justice system. God bless America. A big thank you to Private Internet Access for sponsoring this video. Support the channel by using my link in the description to grab an 83% off discount on your PIA subscription. That's just $2.03 a month, and you'll even get 4 extra months completely free. Plus, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so signing up is completely risk-free. Oh boy!
hot spankable.